Families need advocates on many fronts, especially in these times of economic inequality. One example of that is the work of Parenting Journey. We'd like to talk with its new executive director, Imari Paris Jeffries. Thank you very much for being with us, Imari.
Hey, thanks for having me back.
In your previous role here, you were with the Italian Home for Children. It sounds like a whole different field, but I guess this is pretty strongly related to what you're doing now.
You know, where it's related is that they're both organizations concerned about the social emotional health of families and children. At Parenting Journey, we focus only on families in family systems therapy and advocacy. We look at the barriers that prevent families from prospering, and so that's the key difference between our organizations.
Well, parenting is a journey for anybody with children, but what about the parents you're trying to help? What kind of barriers are they confronted with?
You know, when we think about systemic things in the city of Boston, in Massachusetts in general, I think pay inequity is one of the things that prevent parents from being the type of parents that they want to be. The average two-bedroom apartment in Boston is $2,400 a month. And so that's for someone who makes minimum wage, that means they have to work 96 hours to pay their rent. And so pay inequity is something that we focus on. Housing insecurity is something that we focus on. And paid medical, paternity and family leave is something that we focus on as an organization.
Now, many people who work for high-profile companies in Boston might have that kind of paid leave, but on the other hand, a lot of people don't have jobs like that. So what does it mean when you don't have that? Let's say you have an aging parent or a pregnancy come into the picture.
You know, it becomes difficult because we know that when you're a new parent, you need the time to bond with your children, and it's very difficult to raise a child. Sometimes it takes two parents because it's exhausting, providing that nurturing support. And so when families don't have that opportunity and have to make a choice between working or staying home with their children, it makes it quite difficult. And as baby boomers age, and some of us who are Generation Xers or beyond, we need the space to take care of our aging parents. And so when organizations have that, it provides an opportunity and a commitment to families, not just families with children, but families with older parents.
Of course, you're also pushing for a higher minimum wage, and you've been working with some of the other groups in Massachusetts. What's that been like? You
know, we're a part of the Raise Up Massachusetts Coalition, and we know in Boston, if you make minimum wage, the average two-bedroom apartment costs $2,400 a month on average. And so if you make minimum wage, that means you have to work 96 hours a week just to afford rent. And so if you're working 96 hours a week, there's no way that you're going to be able to engage and be fully present with your children and families. And so we really have to have a conversation not only about a minimum wage, but also about housing insecurity that's taking place all over the Commonwealth.
Now, of course, I'm sure you've heard this up in the State House too, that there is another side to that story. Maybe big companies can afford the cost of paid leave or higher minimum wage, but you get a lot of smaller organizations and small businesses. Some of them say that this is going to be pretty tough for them to handle.
We believe that that's true. But there's got to be a nice middle ground. And so we certainly don't want small businesses to go under because they are paying employees in a way that doesn't support their business enterprise. And so whatever that is if it's $12, if it's $12.50 for small businesses, we understand that there's got to be a slight difference between it. But for corporations, for organizations that have the revenue to support a $15 minimum wage, which is the vast majority of organizations in Massachusetts, especially an organization in a state that has so many college-educated people, $15 minimum wage is the only way that we can create a sustainable Massachusetts.
This has been in the news, and we're talking with Imari Paris Jeffries from Parenting Journey. Imari, what's going on here too with the parents you're trying to help is, unlike parents who might have a lot of support from their extended family members and they're all living in one area, you got people who might want to be, they want to raise their children differently. Maybe they had an unhappy, even dysfunctional kind of childhood. How do you help them make it work?
We believe that when families have connections with other families, that's the key. No longer do we live in a city or a society where you can rely on your neighbor to babysit your kids, or you knew what was going to happen. If you were down the street, you know that someone's going to get a phone call, your mother was going to get a phone call because you were up somewhere where you shouldn't be. We don't have those type of social networks, and so we know when parents have an opportunity to unapologetically get together with other parents who have similar experiences, that it brings a level of closeness and connectivity that parents need in order to raise children together.
And this is not about telling the parents what to do. It's about, you say, building on their strengths. What does that mean?
I think it's about us acknowledging that there are real systemic barriers that prevent families from succeeding, and that pay inequity. When you come from a family where you don't make a lot of money and you have to make choices between going to your children's school conference or play or working those hours to keep the lights on and making sure there's food on the table, I mean, that's a hard decision. And so parents need the support of other parents to say, hey, you know what? You're not a bad parent. You made the best decision that you could. And I think it fundamentally starts with acknowledging that there are barriers that get into parents' way.
Another part of the strategy here is to use fellowships. Explain how that works.
And so we have a fellowship program, and our most recent fellow was Tito Jackson. So for an organization our size, and because we are not only directly working with parents, but really trying to address systemic and policies that prevent families from prospering, having a fellowship program where we have an expertise, someone like Tito come in for a few months, lend some of the expertise that he knows from his experience on the city council to our organization so we can develop our platform. And one of the platforms that we most recently developed by and for parents was our Parent Bill of Rights.
And what's in that Bill of Rights exactly?
And so it outlines 3 basic tenets that all families in Massachusetts need. They need access to safe places, they need access to educational opportunities that provide them with good jobs and educational opportunities for their children, and they need access to transportation in their communities and their neighborhood to receive and go to those jobs.
And finally, you've got some board members brought on board and some levels of expertise there too. What did you put into the mix?
We brought in 5, I think both nationally and locally known leaders. Robert Lewis Jr., who we all know has been a longtime leader in the city. Kate Gedge, who is a vice president and philanthropist at the Boston Foundation. Jay Humans, who is one of the advisors to Governor Patrick around health and human services. We brought Bethia Carter, who is the CEO of New England Blacks in Philanthropy. And we brought Travis McCready, who is the CEO of Mass Life Sciences, who also was a vice president of Boston Foundation and engaged in philanthropy and service work. And so we really want to bring a level of expertise on our board to not only inform our direction as an agency, but to inform what's happening in communities across the Commonwealth.
Finally, Imari, we should mention people want some more information, they can go to your website too?
They can go to our website. It's parentingjourney.org.
Thank you very much for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
Imari Paris Jeffries from Parenting Journey.